I'm probably going to read a lot more than I normally do instead of commenting so much because this is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Are we already recording?
Yeah.
All right, bro. All right. The Votary, Chapter 6, page 59. The Votary of the Lotus Sutra, hyphen, one who practices the correct teaching with outstanding perseverance and compassion. So what's he talking about? Again, he's not talking about a specific individual. He's talking about those people that practice with the correct teaching with outstanding perseverance and compassion are votaries of the Lotus Sutra. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, they are votaries of the Lotus Sutra. So this isn't talking about a single individual like the Buddha. All right? When he although it's all about actual Ichinen Sanzen. Do you understand? Everybody's with me? All right, so when he established his teaching in 1253, 700 years before I was born, Nichiren Daishonin foresaw that great difficulties and obstacles would inevitably lie ahead of him. Nonetheless, he stood up as the votary of the Lotus Sutra, vowing to summon up a powerful and unconquerable desire for the salvation of all beings and never falter in his efforts. From page 240. His ensuing struggle was, just as he predicted, and as corroborated by passages in the Lotus Sutra, a battle against an unending series of persecutions. He writes, "It is already over 20 years since I began proclaiming my doctrines. Day after day, month after month, year after year, I have been subjected to repeated persecutions. Minor persecutions and annoyances are too numerous even to be counted, but the major persecutions number 4. Now, does everybody understand the significance of that? Basically, the significance of that is that if the Daishonin lived this kind of an existence as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, we, emulating his life, emulating his practice, using him as the mentor and example, right, from the last chapter, right? We should also then not be surprised if we encounter these same resistances in our environment and our daily life.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. But why? Here's the thing. That's what that outstanding perseverance and compassion part of this title is all about.
All right.
Outstanding perseverance and compassion says you fight on, even in the face of adversity, and you're not discouraged. That's what this whole chapter is going to be about. I said I wasn't going to talk that much. I was going to read, but you're going to see that that's really when I read it. And President Ikeda is talking about Nietzsche, or he's talking about one who is the votary, all right? A lot of times you'll have a tendency to go, you're talking about you. You know, you'll be able to read and reflect the actions of President Ikeda as an individual, as a lay leader, as a leader of Kosen Rufu, and you'll go, oh. But this applies to you. You and Daisaku Ikeda are the same.
Yeah.
He is not above you. He's exactly like us, ordinary people,
Yes.
right? So, fierce and relentless persecutions arise from hatred and jealousy. So, where does all of this adversity come from? It actually comes from the animosity of others who don't like the fact that we're telling the truth. The major persecutions, number 4, the top or the first at the beginning of the second column, page 59. The major persecutions, number 4, says the Daishonin. In the 2 decades following the establishment of his teaching, he had encountered 4 great persecutions that threatened not only his own life, but also the continued existence of his community of believers. Needless to say, these were the Magabayatsu persecution in 1260, the Izu exile in 1261, the Komatsubara persecution in 1264, and the Tatsunokuchi persecution and Sato exile in 1271. The Tatsunokuchi persecution and subsequent Sato exile constituted the authorities' greatest crackdown yet. Nichiren was dragged to the execution grounds and nearly beheaded. His followers were treated as if they were traitors. The government repression was so harsh that even those who had merely listened to his teachings were subjected to severe punishment, as reflected in this Gosho. The four major persecutions clearly revealed that the malice and brutality of those who schemed to do away with the Daishonin and destroy his community of believers. With regard to the many other attacks and obstacles he encountered, Nichiren writes, minor persecutions and annoyances are too numerous even to be counted. These included slander and abuse, false accusations and harassment, as well as his followers being subjected to fines or banishment. Persecutions of this kind, which the Daishonin describes as too numerous even to be counted, continued without cease, showing the relentlessness of his tormentors. After the overview of his hardships to that point, the Daishonin goes on to cite various sutras and commentaries that classify the true nature of those persecuting him. These people are essentially driven by hatred and jealousy, a deep hostility arising from a swirling cauldron of complex negative emotions. The priests and lay followers of the other Buddhist schools of the time The priests and lay followers of the other Buddhist schools of the time bore strong feelings of resentment and jealousy because of Nichiren's pure and unswerving commitment to practicing the correct teaching as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. They also openly hated him for having refuted the errors of their schools. Do you understand what he just said there? Do you relate to that? Okay, let me just... These people are essentially driven by hatred and jealousy, a deep hostility arising from a swirling cauldron of complex negative emotions. The priests and lay followers of the other Buddhist schools of the time bore strong feelings of resentment and jealousy because of Nichiren's pure and unswerving commitment to practicing the correct teaching as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. So, in other words, he experienced this animosity and these difficulties as a direct result of his propagation of the correct teaching. If he would have kept his mouth shut, he wouldn't have caught all this crap. Okay? The Daishonin here quotes passages from the Lotus Sutra indicating that hatred and jealousy toward the sutra's votary lie at the root of the persecution that confronts those, plural, who uphold the law in the latter day. These passages include the following. Since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in this world, how much more so will this be so after his passing? From the Lotus Sutra, from page 203. On seeing those who read, recite, copy, and uphold this sutra, a person who slanders the correct teaching should despise, hate, envy, or bear grudges against them. Also from the Lotus Sutra, page 110. If the Lotus Sutra will face much hostility in the world and be difficult to believe, from the Lotus Sutra, page 246. He also refers to other Lotus Sutra and Nirvana Sutra passages detailing how insidious persecution arises from hatred and jealousy, and it manifests as slander and abuse, false accusations, banishment and exile, and other forms of direct and indirect violence aimed at alienating people from the correct teaching. To stress this point further, he quotes commentaries by Tiantai, Myolo, Dengyo, Shitu, the author of Tongchun, and others. Fierce and relentless persecutions befall the votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law because of the raging hatred and jealousy seething in the lives of the attackers. You with me?
Yes.
So he's saying, why? Because of their hatred, okay? Not because of your bad karma. This is the point in time where the 3 obstacles and the 4 devils have appeared. That is not bad karma. That is actually a reflection of good karma. The 3 obstacles and the 4 devils only come after you, as in the essential nature of your life starts to come to the surface. The essential nature of your life contains both good and bad. But what is the essential nature of your life? It is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Does Nam-myoho Renge-kyo contain bad?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It contains good and bad equally.
Yeah.
It contains all things equally. Do you understand? So there's no prevalence of the white hat guy and the black hat guy. That's why we as common mortals, no matter which of the 9 worlds we live in, as our predominant fundamental life condition, okay, we can manifest the 10th world in each moment if we have the wisdom to bring it forth. So, he says, an age when fundamental darkness reigns, correct? Right. When a little boy is given moxibustion treatment, he will invariably resent his mother. Now, you guys all know what moxibustion is. Moxibustion. Moxibustion is cupping, but done with the candle instead of a, you know, like when they would. It's Asian. It's Asian.
Therapy.
You know, treatment. You know what moxibustion is then, right? It's
Bagwan.
the cupping where they.
Okay.
Okay, now you understand. What do you call it again? Say it loudly for anybody else.
拔罐
Ba huan.
拔罐
Whatever you just said. Okay? So, when a little boy is given moxibustion treatment, he will invariably resent his mother. When a seriously ill person is given good medicine, he will complain without fail about its bitterness. And we meet with similar complaints about the Lotus Sutra, even in the lifetime of the Buddha. How much more severe is the opposition after his passing, especially in the middle and latter days of the law, and in a far-off country like Japan. As mountains pile upon mountains and waves follow waves, so do persecutions add to persecutions, and criticisms augment criticisms. It is now over 200 years since the latter day of the law began. Again, based on 949 being the beginning. You understand that, right? Okay. The Buddha predicted that conditions would be much worse after his passing, and we see the portents of this in the quarrels and wranglings that go on today because unreasonable doctrines are prevalent. And as proof of the fact that we are living in a muddied age, I was not summoned for a doctrinal debate with my opponents, but instead I was sent into exile and my very life imperiled. Now this is again two sections of the Gosho itself from page 241 and 242. Going on, second column, page 61. The essence of this hatred and jealousy is fundamental darkness. Do you understand? It's their fundamental darkness. Do you follow? Their fundamental darkness causes them to doubt the truth that you're telling them about the fact that they inherently possess Buddhahood and that all people possess Buddhahood. And since they reject that, they slander the law. In that process, that manifests as slander to the teacher that's trying to help them. Don't forget, when hatred and jealousy arises, and it's then reflected toward the teacher of the correct teaching. Let's say the Buddha, but the votary of the Lotus Sutra. What causes that for those that are manifesting that in their lives? It's not like that's just something that is reflected on you and there's no retribution for them. Don't forget the example that we use constantly of Ganken Ogo, of Bodhisattva never disparaging, right? Those that disparaged him did create karma that far exceeded anything they were doing in hassling him. Do you understand? Yes. The karmic retribution they received in their life was much greater than the persecution of them to his life. Do you understand? It wasn't a tit-for-tat correlation of causality, because he was manifesting Ganken Ogo. Okay? Not bad karma. All right, so the essence of this hatred and jealousy is fundamental darkness and ignorance and disbelief in the mystic law. The latter day is characterized by a world, now, rampant with disbelief in the correct teaching and with slander of the law, by virtue of that disbelief in the correct teaching. When the votary of the Lotus Sutra expounds the correct teaching, the fundamental darkness in people's lives functions as a devilish force. Now that fundamental darkness is part of the fundamental nature of their life. Okay? But it manifests around this catalytic event. Do you understand? I say, when the votary of the Lotus Sutra, which could be any of us, expounds the correct teaching, The fundamental darkness in people's lives function as a devilish force. Society in this defiled age mirrors the description in the Lotus Sutra of evil demons entering people's lives to persecute the sutra's practitioners. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So it does correlate, because they're the source of our reflective Sanchoshima. Mm-hmm. But that's an aspect of Ganken no Go. That's from our infinite and outstanding perseverance and compassion, that we're here in this IA world when we really don't have to be, but we want to teach the law because that's what we get off on the most. Do you get it? Mm-hmm. We're bodhisattvas of the earth. Yeah. All right? So, he says, it is just as the Daishonin says when he writes, the fundamental darkness manifests itself as the devil king of the sixth heaven. This is again from that treatment of illness. Likewise, in accord with this observation, evil demons hate good people, those whose lives have been possessed by demons or devilish functions harass the practitioners of the correct teaching. The Daishonin also states, the entire country of Japan hates me, Nichiren. Everyone from the ruler on down to the common people sees in anger against me, such as the world has never seen. This is the first time that the fundamental darkness has erupted in the lives of ordinary people caught in the illusions of thought and desire. Now, why does he say that? What brings forth fundamental darkness? Relationship with the correct teaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's never been a relationship available to the correct teaching prior to the advent of the Buddhism of the sowing through Nichiren. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That's why he's able to say that. This is the first time that fundamental darkness has erupted. This fundamental darkness, this aspect of the original state, has erupted in the lives of ordinary people. Why? Because they now have the potentiality to become Buddhas. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right? And the lives of those caught in the illusions of thought and desire. The deluded people, common mortals. Follow?
Yes.
In the latter day, when society abounds with slander of the law, the three obstacles and the four devils appear with even greater intensity than in the middle day of the law, during which Tintai and Dingyo live. This is because the prevalence of such slander stimulates the function of fundamental darkness and intensifies the three poisons, greed, anger, and foolishness. Consequently, there is great hatred and jealousy toward the votary of the Lotus Sutra, who expounds and spreads the correct teaching. All right? So he's going to go on here in a minute to say, why didn't Dingyo and Tintai suffer on the same level that I do? Because they didn't actually teach the Buddhism of the sowing, the correct teaching, the actual teaching for establishing Buddhahood in your present form. Okay? Since they didn't teach a Buddhism that allowed for the manifestation of Buddhism in your present form, they resistance to that. Okay? Because they weren't really giving away Buddhahood like Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is giving away Buddhahood, quote unquote, giving away. You understand?
Right.
All right, so the Daishonin explains this in the opening of the eyes using the following allegory. When a little boy is given moxibustion treatment, he will invariably resent his mother. When a seriously ill person is given good medicine that can cure them, they will complain without fail about its bitterness. We're always deluded and short-sighted about the reality of the fact that a small inconvenience is actually expediting a very painful process to be avoided.
Yes.
Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So when you go, oh, great, okay. That opposition is why you get to be the Buddha in this lifetime. Would you trade that for anything? No, I don't know. Maybe.
No.
Depends on how I feel today. I understand.
No.
It's rough. But again, the universe understands how rough it is. That's why on days like today, when I feel so bad that I can't get out of bed, I'm so dizzy, I keep falling back into it. I know that's devilish functions. That's why you're saying, go get rest. It's like, no, I need to chant so that I can read this, because I'm not going to be able to the way I feel. I've already tried resting. That's what's manifesting. You'd be shocked. at how often this occurs in your daily life. You think it's one thing, and it's really not. It's an influence to try and stop you from being able to achieve what you might otherwise. All right? The fact that one is,
Every day.
every day. This is what we're doing. That's what I'm trying to explain. This is not some remote kind of philosophy that applies to some dude from 13th century Japan, or some guy from 2,000 years ago, or some conservative older gentleman in Japan right now. This is about each one of us. Okay? This is how we can live our lives most valuably. Okay? So, he says, the fact that one is a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra, unerringly spreading the mystic law, okay, so that means you're giving it your best every day. This isn't a half-ass attitude of practice. This is the seeking spirit of Mugi Washin. You are endeavoring to become the Buddha. Okay, you're aspiring toward actual Ichiban and Sanzen. This isn't like what he's talking about. Listen to what he says, how he always puts in these kind of qualifiers. Okay? The qualifier is that you have to have sincere faith and be practicing as he does, as Daisaku Ikeda does, which is the correct way to practice, which means it's a daily process of desire and thought for Kosen Rufu. Okay? You do it. I know you do it. You're on it. You're on. Well, I think everybody around this table, if they're not there, they're very close. Okay? So there is a difference in what he's saying. Don't understand. He's not saying just every Soka Gakkai member. He doesn't qualify it as that. He qualifies it as a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra who is unerringly spreading the mystic law, stirs fierce resentment in those filled with disbelief toward it. They can even be fellow practitioners that don't perceive the teaching correctly. They think it is about something, where I'm going to become perfect and, at some time everything will change and it will always be great and I will get this reward, this heaven on earth. That isn't what we've been reading for 7 years. You understand that, right? Okay, so, as the Daishonin asserts, if the devils did not arise, and this is a key quote from the letter to the brothers, this is what I keep saying over and over again. Thank you for telling me it's from the letter to the brothers. I didn't always remember that. But this is the counterintuitive reality of truth that the Daishonin teaches us to live our lives with. If devils did not arise, there would be no way of knowing that this is the correct teaching. Because the Lotus Sutra clearly delineates what will happen to the votary in the latter day who stands up and teaches the correct teaching. And there will be opposition. So as the Daishonin says, again, when you meet this opposition, don't be defeated by it. Don't be all stressed out about it. Of course, your life condition in that moment may allow that. But ultimately, if you get in front of the Gohonzon, you should be able to manifest the wisdom to perceive the truth, which is that you are the Buddha exactly as you are. This is nothing more than devilish functions, and it's time to kick the devilish function's ass, or the devilish function will kick your ass. It's win or lose. Straight up. Each moment, each devilish function attack. It's the same way for all of them. Okay? Next paragraph, top of 62. Though having committed no wrong, okay, now what's that say then? The votary is assailed by repeated persecutions. That is again saying that this three obstacles and four devils, okay? That this Sancho Shima is not occurring because you did something bad. All right? It's because you're practicing the correct teaching on the way to Anuttara Samyak Sambho Dai in a single lifetime. All right? Defamatory attacks are the means by which people of great arrogance try to discredit the just. Oh, I totally so understand that.
Yes.
Wishing to avoid dialogue or debate and also seeking to preserve their own prestige, such people resort to the base means of spreading slander and lies about their enemies. They malign the just by branding them as villains. So if you're branded as a villain, you're just like Nichiren. Okay? There's nothing wrong with being branded a villain. Actually, if devils didn't arise, there would be no way of knowing that this is the correct teaching and that you're practicing correctly. There's a reason why Daisaku Ikeda has to write all this over and over and over again. Because Nichiren already wrote it over and over and over again. We didn't read it and get it. Okay, so President Ikeda is qualifying it so there can be no mistake. Nothing slipping between the lines here. Understand what to expect as you persevere through to the last moment of life. Because that's what this is all about. This is the path to the last moment of life that will carry over into the next moment of life that comes after that. All right? Encouraging devotion, which is, again, is so weird because you saw how spontaneously I got up and read that to you. He's going to keep constantly referring to that over and over again now. All right, so now you all know what it says. You've all been given that. Remember, right? Right? Encouraging devotion, the 13th chapter of Lotus Sutra describes how arrogant priests revered as sages, the third of the three powerful enemies, will make defamatory allegations against the votary of the Lotus Sutra to the ruler, ministers, and other influential people in society. Also, the Nirvana Sutra depicts numerous non-Buddhists going to King Ajatasattu and falsely accusing Shakyamuni, asserting, for example, that he was greedy for profit and that he employed spells and magic. Making claims that were the total opposite of the truth, they denounced the Buddha as a man of incomparable wickedness. Okay, so this goes all the way to Shakyamuni, this kind of crap. All right? This kind of crap, if you read about all these great guys that you read all the good stuff about, you'll find that they also dealt with great crap. In a sound society, there will naturally be leaders who can see through such lies. There will be those of us that can perceive the truth so that it can be taught. The Daishonin notes that Tentai and Dingyo initially encountered various persecutions in the middle day of the law, but that their rulers ultimately discerned and clarified what was true, thus putting an end to their harassment. Do you understand what he's saying there? Okay, in both the case of Tentai and Dingyo, the royalty, because of the opposition of the other schools attacking them, they got to have debates. They got to have showdowns that were public, who knows what they're talking about events, okay, attended by the royal court. And in both instances with Tentai and with Dingyo, they were ultimately protected by the sovereign based on the asserted correctness of the sovereign perceiving their teaching as correct. Do you understand? That's how all the other 6 schools ended up under Mount He at some point in time, prior to when Dengyo did the ordination platform. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. All right. So, again, the difference between Nichiren and those sages that preceded him is that the sages that preceded him, including Shakyamuni, were given alms by the rulers of the communities that they were propagating in. They were ultimately protected by those rulers. Only Nichiren was not protected at all. Okay? Why wasn't he protected at all? Could he have been protected? Absolutely. They offered it and could. That's one of the reasons why they were so pissed off. Because they said, look, we'll give you a temple. Yeah. We'll give you prestige. We'll give you money. We'll knock all these other people down. We won't let them persecute you. But you got to quit saying that everybody's got to stop doing all of their stuff. He's going like,
Baby.
can I do? Can I do? I'm sorry, okay, I'm off to Minobu. That's why he left and went off to Minobu, because he thought for sure after he come back from Sato Island, for sure they're going to listen to me now. And instead they're going like, hey, yeah, we kind of listened to you. A lot of what you said, oh, wow. But everything but we can't, turn against the royal court and all the politics. All right? So, in the latter day of the law, however, when priests of evil intent distort the teachings, society's leaders lose both the ability and the will to distinguish between good and evil. Hence, Nichiren writes, unreasonable doctrines are prevalent, and as proof of the fact that we are living in a muddied age, I was not summoned for a doctrinal debate with my opponents. See, so he refers to the fact that I never got a chance to show everybody, as I thought I would, as I should have been, that what I'm saying is actually completely, I'll eat your lunch. I just had this big debate over on Sato Island where I kicked everybody's butt. This is not a problem for me. Let me at him. Ryokan, make it rain, baby. 2 fires. Can you make it rain? I can make it rain. Okay? No problem. Here, he refers to the government's outrageous conduct in its judicial affairs, as was evidenced by his summary sentencing to exile, which was tantamount to a death sentence without being given a fair opportunity to defend himself against the charges brought against him. Okay? You with me? Because there was a legal system of sorts in Japan at the time. There was a legal process that should have been followed in his persecution, and it wasn't. He says, rulers who cannot discern the truth are comparable in today's democratic age to societies in which people accept lies and stand by silently while others are unjustly maligned. If lies and misrepresentations are allowed to go unchecked, people will store them in their minds as facts. A society that fails to combat such distortions is sure to suffer spiritual corruption and decline. Therefore, in advancing Kosen Rufu in latter day, it is absolutely vital for us to engage in energetic and engage in energetic and insightful debate and discourse in order to ward off the fundamental darkness in people's lives and confront slander of the law, which is so spiritually destructive. This is the only way we can restore society's spiritual health. Now, do you understand why one of the things I know is underlying this paragraph that you might not be aware of? Okay, in Japan, all right, because the Soka Gakkai is so prominent and prevalent a part of contemporary Japanese society. I mean, again, the Komeito Party is a major political entity in Japan. Okay, there's nobody that you can go to virtually from Japan that you can say, I'm Soka Gakkai. You know Daisaku Ikeda? Many of them they'll all know who Daisaku Ikeda is. They'll all know Soka Gakkai. Okay, and so understand that there have been many falsehoods spoken of President Ikeda and the Soka Gakkai internationally, but specifically, essentially in Japan, where there's the biggest reason to want to attack him because they hold so much sway and power. All right, but the key is that they're very litigious. If you've never understood that fact, do understand, because you could be hit with it someday. The Soka Gakkai doesn't wait more than maybe 5 or 10 minutes to sue anybody that's telling lies about them. Do you understand that? Did you know that?
No.
They're the most litigious. Oh, whoa. They really do. They've sued the high priest. They've sued a lot of people. A lot of people. And why? So you would say, but that's kind of like not cool. Why would you sue people and stuff like that? You know, you should just like be mellow and just chant for them. No. When somebody is officially out there in the newspaper that everybody sees, or on the television that everybody sees, attacking the correct teacher, the correct teaching, or whatever, you have to stop that. As I already said a week or two ago, one of the times I was talking, You have to have the courage to stand up when you see this maligned slander that's not true and say, no, that's not my experience. That's not the case as far as I'm aware. You must stand up against it. So that's what actually is also behind this. If lies and misrepresentations are allowed to go unchecked, people will store them in their minds as facts. So you've got to go after them. That's why the Soka Gakkai does. If you ever hear, oh, they sue a lot, they do. They take it to the courts and let the courts decide. That goes all the way back to President Toda's day, when they threw Daisaku Ikeda in jail. I mean, you know, after the Kansai campaign, you know, there are many examples of these processes that became involved. So, just so you know. Yeah. So, therefore, in advancing Kosen Rufu in the latter day, it is absolutely vital for us to engage in energetic and insightful debate and discourse in order to ward off the fundamental darkness of people's lives and confront slander of the law, and confront slander of the law, and confront slander of the law, which is so spiritually destructive. This is the only way we can restore society's spiritual health. So he's saying that, again, it's actually an act of compassion to confront in this manner so that lies cannot be stored as the truth. Do you follow? Yes. It's not to be argumentative, litigious, or gain monetary gain. Generally, it's to have a ruling come down that says, no, that is a lie. Okay? So that the slander can be defended, because they never lose. That's the other cool thing. The Soka Gakkai never loses these cases because they are always based on bullshit. All right? So they start out as bullshit, but nobody knows they're bullshit. They have to be proven to be bullshit. That's why they take them to court. All right? While I have been focusing specifically on false accusations and lies, because in his experience that's what they've already had to deal with so much of, used to attack the votary of the Lotus Sutra, it is no simple matter in any circumstance to speak out and proclaim the truth in a corrupt society where right and wrong, good and evil are confused. So he's saying right up front, I understand how difficult that will be. Rather, the more one champions the truth, the fiercer the storms of persecution will grow. It is like one person standing up in olden times to explain that the earth revolves around the sun, while everyone is firmly convinced of the opposite. Those who champion the truth will encounter persistent and incomprehensible persecution. Do you see how that's highlighted? Okay. Do you see how that's highlighted? Okay, so I'll say it again. Those who champion the truth. This is Daisaku Ikeda telling those people that consider him to be his mentor, their mentor. Those who champion the truth will encounter persistent and incomprehensible persecution. This indeed is a mark of their veracity and integrity. This is indeed a mark of their veracity and integrity. Veracity is truthfulness, insightful correctness, their correctness. Okay? Discussing it's fun to be exhausted, right? Discussing the qualifications of a votary of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law, the Daishonin writes, if pure persecutions greater than those that arose during the Buddha's lifetime keep occurring again and again to someone who is not guilty of the slightest fault, then one should realize that that person is a true votary of the Lotus Sutra in the age after the Buddha's passing. That's from On Repaying Debts of Gratitude. Although the votary has committed no offense, so this is Sancho Shima, okay? This is Ganken o Go. Do you know what Ganken o Go is? Does everybody remember what it is? We're going to talk about it in this chapter, right? Deliberately creating the appropriate karma. That's what we've done as Bodhisattvas of the earth. He is continually assailed by momentous persecutions. The Daishonin vividly describes this as mountains pile upon mountains and waves follow waves. So do persecutions add to persecutions, and criticisms augment criticisms. Aware from the outset of the inevitability of meeting persecution, the Daishonin courageously stood up alone as the Lotus Sutra's votary. Having already waged an unceasing 20-year struggle, he continued expounding the correct teaching with the impassioned roar of a lion in his place of exile on Sado Island. Top of second column, page 63. Upholding the law through perseverance and compassion, which, if you remember, that's what this says here, right? With outstanding, the votary of the Lotus Sutra, one who practices the correct teaching with outstanding perseverance and compassion. So now he's going to talk about doing that, all right? And being that votary. From the Gosho. When it comes to understanding the Lotus Sutra, I have only a minute fraction of the vast ability that Tentai and Dingyo possessed. But as regards my ability to endure persecution and the wealth of my compassion for others, I believe they would hold me in awe. In the above passage, the Daishonin describes his own identity as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Even supposing that Tentai and Dingyo surpassed him in the depth of understanding of the Lotus Sutra, the Daishonin asserts that he exceeds them in perseverance and compassion. Okay? So what does he qualify? If he is the true original teacher, if he's the original votary, if he's the teacher of the Buddhism of the sowing, what does that tell you in and of itself? What's the most important thing in life as a human being? It's not how much you know, it's how much you can persevere and how much compassion you can express. Do you understand? So it's not about going and studying with a bunch of books. You know, where I'm coming from right now is from almost going on 45 years of practice. It's not from having read this. Yeah, I read this. I read this many years ago. I read it again and again and again before I've read it now in front of the camera. That's what I'm saying. This is about the process of your faith and the course of practice over the course of your life. Do you understand? So it's not about how much you know. It's how much you can utilize what you know correctly. Do you understand? Because even if you only know it a little bit, how to utilize it, that will carry you through. Because that's going to carry you through from the aspect of perseverance and compassion. Don't forget, why are you having to persevere?
Because you took the vow.
Exactly! Thank you, dear. Yes, because you took the vow. It's because of your compassion that you're here doing this, which is requiring a level of perseverance. Even though you're not fully clear and aware of all that yet. It seems like just weird, bad shit's happening to you. But no, it's ultimately for you to serve as the example, that you uniquely are here to serve as an example. Do you understand? Each one of you is a unique subset of the Buddha. All right? You all contain the same Buddha nature. You're all differing expressions of that same Buddha nature. Is it getting close to time? Okay, good. So, in the above passage, I'll start again. In the above passage, the Daishonin describes his own identity as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Even supposing that Tentai and Dingyo surpassed him in depth of understanding the Lotus Sutra, the Daishonin asserts that he exceeds them in perseverance and compassion. Naturally, to spread the mystic law in the latter day, it is important to talk to others based on a profound understanding of the Lotus Sutra. In other words, to present the sutra's teachings and doctrines logically and coherently. But that really doesn't come from studying them as much as it does from practicing them. Practicing from this perspective that the teaching is teaching you, you should try to behave, embrace. All right? The teaching says this is the truth. You believe that. That's what Mugiwashin is. Mugiwashin is. So the Daishonin may concede the higher ground to Tentai and Dingyo in providing lucid and rational theoretical explanations. He by no means diminishes the need for such explanations. Do you understand? So he's saying it's not that knowing a lot is not important. It's just that each individual doesn't have to know everything. That's not the measure of whether each individual will attain Buddhahood in their present form. We all have different karmas. We all have different capacities. We all have different functions. But we're all connected. Okay? Right? Like a train, there's going to be an engine, there's going to be a caboose, there's a bunch of cars in between. It's all the train. You don't differentiate. Okay? That is the predication of the grand equality of the bodhisattvas of the earth in the latter day of the law. Do you understand? We all have different functions in our manifestations in this moment that will change as we go on. More important, because your lives will all change. Trust me, that I can promise you, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
More important, however, okay, so he says, so he's saying right now, what I just said I didn't know he was going to say, but he is saying. He's saying, what's more important than knowing stuff is perseverance. That's what he's saying. More important, however, are perseverance, that is the ability to endure persecution, and compassion, which are indispensable to actually spreading the law in the evil latter day and to helping even those experiencing the greatest suffering attain genuine happiness. You follow?
Yes.
All right, so perseverance and compassion are like two sides of the same coin. Profound compassion based on a wish to free all people from suffering gives one incomparable strength to endure persecution and spread the law. To endure persecution, to persevere amid obstacles, does not mean passive acceptance. Do understand that always. This process of perseverance is never about just suck it in and eat it. It's about kick its ass and defeat it. They're two different things. One is like waiting to be able to go to heaven, waiting for this all to finally be behind me. That's not what we're talking about. It's finding joy in the struggle because of the happiness that wisdom brings from the depth of your life naturally and genuinely. Do you understand? That's life condition. That's the 10th world existing in the 9. All right?
Right.
Pardon me. Where am I? I'm almost
Those aware of their mission.
Where?
To endure.
over. Did I skip something somehow?
No, to endure it. To endure persecution.
Oh, okay, pardon me.
Yeah.
To endure persecution, to persevere amid obstacles, does not mean passive acceptance, excuse me. The latter day is an age when evil is rampant. Those aware of their mission to defeat this evil and awaken others to life's ultimate truth must be prepared. So as everybody, no, those that are awakened to this mission must be aware of this. Because those that are not awakened to this mission are not going to face this.
No.
Do you understand? Those that get to trip along without any problems are not actualizing what we're talking about. He's saying that clearly. Understand that. To endure persecution, to persevere amid obstacles does not mean passive acceptance. The latter day is an age when evil is rampant. Those aware of their mission to defeat this evil, bodhisattvas of the earth, and awaken others to life's ultimate truth must be prepared to fight continually through any obstacle or difficulty. Never give up. Their actions are essentially motivated by a solemn, rigorous compassion not to let anyone in the latter day fall into the unfortunate trap of slandering the law. This unwavering compassion leads directly to all people's enlightenment in the latter day. Do you understand? Kosen Rufu involves all of us, not one of us or some of us. Do you understand? So every action that you establish in your life that follows this prescription actually creates the Kosen Rufu that we're talking about. It's not an individual's advance. It's living beings' advance. Do you understand? Because it doesn't happen like that. It happens exponentially. We're going to finish this. The joy of faith based on the principle of voluntary assuming the appropriate karma. So this is Gan Kinno Go, right?
Yes.
With this body of mine, I have fulfilled the prophecies of the sutra. The more the government authorities rage against me, the greater is my joy. For instance, there are certain Hinayana bodhisattvas not yet freed from delusion who draw evil karma to themselves by their own compassionate vow. If they see that their father and mother have fallen into hell and are suffering greatly, they will deliberately create the appropriate karma in hopes that they too may fall into hell and share in and take their suffering upon themselves. Thus suffering is a joy to them. It is the same with me. So, we're not Hinayana believers, but the Daishonin is saying adopt that attitude as it relates to the difficulties that you encounter. All right? They should be the source of your joy because you know you're accomplishing your mission in life, the purpose that you were truly born to accomplish. All right? Compassion is the driving force behind perseverance, while perseverance is proof of deep compassion. That's why they're two sides to the same coin. All right? To explain this, the Daishonin discusses the principle of voluntarily assuming the appropriate karma. Gan kin o go. Here the Daishonin states that his experiencing great persecutions corresponds with the principle of bodhisattvas voluntarily assuming karma and choosing to take on suffering out of a desire to lead living beings to enlightenment. And just as bodhisattvas regard undergoing suffering on behalf of living beings as a source of joy, Nichiren says he also views experiencing pain and hardship as a result of these present persecutions as a cause for rejoicing, because it will enable him to escape falling into the three evil paths in future existences. That's what enables him to be the Buddha in his present form. The Daishonin's assertions that voluntarily assuming the appropriate karma is a source of joy echoes the final lines of The Opening of the Eyes, where he states, "For what I have done, I have been condemned to exile, but that is a small suffering to undergo in this present life, and not one worth lamenting. In future lives, I will enjoy immense happiness, a thought that gives me great joy." The principle of voluntarily assuming the appropriate karma is the logical conclusion of the Buddhist concept of transforming one's karma. Simply put, it represents a way of life in which we change karma into mission. Now understand, the teaching that I'm teaching you right now from President Ikeda only exists within the Soka Gakkai. Okay? The Soka Gakkai is President Toda. This whole gleaning of Ganken no Go. Go look in the Buddhist dictionary. It's not there. Okay? This is an understanding of the wisdom, the enlightened wisdom of the three founding presidents. This is a teaching that has emerged in the last 40, 45 years. Okay? So you can't go way back. Now, this anecdote about the Hinayana Bodhisattvas, yes, that precedes this. But this is something that as President Ikeda, President Toda, President Makaguchi experienced the truth of what it is to live as a real votary of the Lotus Sutra. End up in prison, end up with ill health, end up taking a lot of crap. The way that they could perceive it correctly was to understand Ganken no Go. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. These are, just like I just reread to make sure I wasn't, the Hinayana scriptures, of which the Lotus Sutra is the highest, all occurred 500 years after Shakyamuni was dead. There's no sign of them prior to that. So again, academically, what is the source? The source is this progression toward the fulfillment of the Buddhism of the sowing, Kosen Rufu. All right? Everything that happens in our lives has meaning. Moreover, the Buddhist way of life is to find and discover meaning in all things. Nothing is futile or meaningless. Whatever a person's karma may be, it definitely has some profound significance. This is not just a matter of mere outlook. Changing the world, which is what Kosen Rufu is, right? Changing the world starts by changing our fundamental state of mind. Not bitching about all the difficulties we're dealing with, but embracing them as part of the process of life that we've taken a vow to fulfill. Changing the world starts by changing our fundamental state of mind, which is a key Buddhist principle. A powerful determination to transform even negative karma into mission can dramatically transform the real world. By changing our inner state of mind, we can change any suffering or hardship into a source of joy, regarding it as a means for forging and developing our lives. To turn even sorrow into genuine... Well, my wife's Bell's palsy. I'd say that's my most obvious example of that. To turn even a source of sorrow into a source of creativity. That is the way of life of a Buddha. Nichiren Daishonin teaches us this essential path through his own life and actions as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Having a fighting spirit is itself the direct path to happiness. Only through struggles and challenges can we develop inner strength and construct truly creative lives and develop wisdom, by the way. He didn't mention that, but in my experience, that's hand in hand. Also, by maintaining unwavering faith in the correct teaching, no matter what obstacles or hardships arise, we can enter the orbit of happiness for this. We can enter the orbit of happiness for all eternity, the birth and death in the realm of Buddhahood. Attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime means securing this orbit, right? You attain it in this lifetime, or you remanifest in this lifetime. You're on that. You never change. Securing this orbit in our daily lives during our present existence. Do you follow that? Attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime means securing this orbit, this path of Bodhisattva of the earth, this path of votary of the Lotus Sutra in our current existence. All right? The practitioner of the correct teaching who ceaselessly struggles to spread the law may be interpreted as the ultimate paragon of humanity that Nichiren sets forth based on the Lotus Sutra. Viewed from such a lofty state of life, all difficulties become the genuine foundation for our personal development and growth. Practitioners of the correct teaching who endure obstacles with the awareness, if devils did not arise, this quote from the letter to the brothers over here, there would be no way of knowing there would be no other way of knowing it's correct teaching. Pardon me, it's the full quote here. If devils did not arise, there would be no way of knowing that this is the correct teaching, letter to the brothers, comes to embody the mystic law without fail. They attain the expansive state of life in which they can regard all difficulties as peace and comfort. Okay, that's what we're supposed to, that's our peaceful practices, if you remember from the peaceful practices chapter, right? And rejoice at them with the spirit conveyed when Nichiren writes, the greater the hardships befalling him, the greater the delight he feels because of his strong faith. By clearly revealing this state of life to his followers and everyone throughout the land in the opening of the eyes, Nichiren Daishonin sought to open the eyes of all people shrouded in fundamental darkness. He also strove to convey the quintessential joy experienced by the votary of the Lotus Sutra. We finished the whole chapter in one night. That's a record.
Yeah.
Thank you. On to chapter 7 next week. Thanks.
Thank you.